I was thinking, okay, so what I was understanding from what I saw, that when Akhenaten goes into Amarna, he is considered a heretic king. I'm not going to talk about his physical looks, okay, because there are a lot of interesting, weird stuff about how he looks. Okay, the art of Egyptian artwork changes to more of a realistic depiction of the pharaohs, and when they draw Akhenaten, he looks androgynous. Actually, it seems to suggest that he has hips like a woman, and it seems to suggest that he has a chest like a woman too. So we don't understand what's wrong with Akhenaten, and he has facial deformities as well. He's got what they call morphism. Do you remember how Abraham Lincoln? If you look at the photographs of Abraham Lincoln has a genetic deformity. It has to do with his facial features, and the protrusion of the chin and the narrowing of the facial features is a genetic disease. A lot of historians and scholars believe that Akhenaten had this genetic disease of the narrowing of his facial features, because his portraits are extraordinarily strange looking. He's got this long pointed chin. He's got this weird slender face, tall, kind of strange looking, and his physical form is different too. So there was a lot of different things about Akhenaten. I'm not saying that we should follow Akhenaten. I'm not talking about him in any way like this at all. I'm talking about interjection of consciousness into society of monotheism, okay, one God above all gods. So Akhenaten got the concept that he needed to get rid of all the other gods, and that all the gods that the Egyptians were following, they should shut down the temples, he should stop the priests from doing their services to the other gods, and he mandated across his land that now they were going to serve one God. I think that it was Ra. I think that he calls it, but I don't really want to care about that. But he told everyone that the source of life was the sun, and that everything emanates from the sun, and that they need to pray and give thanks to the sun. Okay.
And you also mentioned how, like, he was overseeing all of Egypt, but he
Right.
moved to another city.
That's true, because I'll have to do some research, but I think at the time, the cities were Memphis was one city where there was a holy seat of power in Memphis, Egypt, and then Thebes, Thebes, was another city of power, if I remember right, Thebes and Memphis. I might be wrong, but he decided to abandon all of those places because evidently through what the archaeologists were putting together the story, evidently Akhenaten was traveling with a small entourage through the desert because he liked to take chariot rides through the desert, and he was searching at we would call the southern end of his land, which was opposite from the delta, and he was in the middle of his territory toward the end, and he looked over to a group of mountains to the west, and he saw a thing called the Saddle of the Sun. I think that's what they call it. And it was if you look at some of the Egyptian artwork, you'll see the depiction of the sun disk, and the sun disk is kind of setting in this beautiful little dip, almost, kind of like this little. It's called the Saddle of the Sun, and they believe that it was a gateway to the afterworld, I think, or well, the sun would come up from the underworld and arise out of the saddle and go across the sky and then go back down to the underworld. So they believe that every day when the sun came up, it was a resurrection. Okay?
Right.
Here's resurrection, right? Every day they had to pray for the sun to be resurrected. So not only did Akhenaten have the concept of monotheism, where there was only one God above all gods, but guess what? He also believed in resurrection, because they firmly believed that when the sun went away, it died, and when the sun came up in the morning, it was born again and lived. to see if there's any indication of any Jewish writings or any kind of Jewish idols or any not idols, but any type of any indication of any type of Hebrew occupation in Amarna, because I believe that Amarna and Akhenaten are right around the time of Moses. This is what I feel. I might be wrong, but Moses, because all of a sudden the Exodus happens and Amarna is ended too. So Amarna is ended, the Exodus happens, and Egypt goes back to serving its old god. Those three things happen right at the same time that Moses goes into the desert with the Egyptian. So when Moses leaves Pharaoh, now I know a lot of people talk about the Pharaoh Ramesses, okay, and I don't know what the connection is with Ramesses II, because I know that the Jews built the cities of Ramesses, the storage cities of Ramesses, when they had the famine. Okay? The Bible says that the Jews were involved in the building of the grain storage cities of Ramesses. Okay? But it doesn't say that the Jews were involved in the building of Amarna for Akhenaten, but I believe that they were. And I believe that when they were working for Akhenaten, the Jews got the concept of monotheism, and also the Jews started to see a concept of resurrection, although they wouldn't understand this.
Well, their father was Abraham, of the families, so they could have forgotten about monotheism, but
possible. Right, because Moses is after Abraham a couple thousand years or a couple hundred years. So at this time, they've been slaves in Egypt for a long time. And at this time, their population started to multiply and they started to become a problem, okay? So I believe that there were Jews all still left in Egypt, but there was a group of Jews that left with the Exodus. And this is around the time of Amarna, and I believe this is around the time of the ending of the reign of Akhenaten. And it's a time when Egypt goes back to worshiping the old gods again, and they reestablish everything. Guess who becomes king?
Oh, I don't know.
Tutankhamun.
Tutankhamun or King Tut?
Yeah, King Tut. King Tut becomes the king after Amarna is shut down, and after they go back to worshiping the gods again, because guess what? King Tut's original name was King Tutankhaten, and they changed his name to Tutankhaten. And so when at first King Tut's name was named after the god of Amarna, but when King Tut is buried as Tutankhamun, he becomes the worshiper of Amun. Right, so King Tut's name gets changed. At the time they go back to worshiping the old god, King Tut actually is a transitional king because King Tut's original name was from his father. King Tut's father is Akhenaten, and so Akhenaten's son is King Tut. King Tut had the name of Akhenaten first, and then when Akhenaten is murdered and they put King Tut into place, and they reestablish all of the ancient gods of their service, King Tut changes his name to Amun.
And you started some of this out saying that they had the Ark of the Covenant.
When the priests, after Akhenaten is dead, and the Jews start on the Exodus, Egypt goes back to its old ways, is what I'm trying to say. So the Jews leave. The Jews leave with the Ark of the Covenant, Linda. Okay, when the Jews leave in the Exodus and they go, they have the Ark with them. Because the Jews, the Hebrews, the Levites, the priests, which weren't called Levites yet, were the ones that were in charge of it for Egypt. So guess what?
Did you say they were the ones that were in charge of it?
No. When the Jews left with all the gold and the jewelry, the Jews stole the Ark. That's what they were chasing after them for.
Okay.
They stole the
Huh.
The Jews stole the ark.
Huh.
The Jews stole the Ark of the Covenant. Not only did they take everything, they stole the Ark. And so what happens? They get to the Red Sea, and Moses goes, what do we do now? Ark of the Covenant, staff of Moses. Woo! There they go. Oh. They go on the other side. It closes up because they have the staff and they have the Ark. Guess what? They got them. And then further on, remember, because it talks about the Ark of the Covenant further on. The Ark of the Covenant, remember? And the pillar of fire, remember?
Yeah, well.
Okay, here you go, Linda. The Jews stole the Ark of the Covenant, and they kept it with them, and guess what? The Ark of the Covenant in the presence of the Lord is what kept them safe in the desert. And the pillar of fire by night, and the pillar of smoke by day. And the pillar of fire stayed between them and the Egyptian army all the time. And the Egyptian army could never approach the Jews because the pillar of fire was always protecting them.
Wow. I never
That's
heard...
how it all starts.
And
there you go, Exodus, right there, buddy.
But you said that there were actually pictures of the ark in the Egyptian
that's
stuff.
right. Okay, the show I was just watching was talking about the Egyptians in prehistory. Before the Jews started to talk about the Ark of the Covenant, is that there's many depictions of the priests carrying around on their shoulders on these poles these gold-covered wooden boxes that had cherubim on them. And there's even a depiction of a pharaoh sitting on top of the gold-covered boxes with the cherubim on top of it, and they were carrying him around on it, and it was levitating.
How could he have done that without a lot of protection from the energy?
What I'm saying is that it was, in the depictions, you could see that it was solid gold, but it was easy for them to carry.
Okay.
They had it just on the top of their shoulders.
Right.
And it was easy to move.
And this was all in that city that Akhenaten had, the city of... whatever.
Okay, I'm going to talk to you about a power source. Okay?
The city of...
Guess what? I tried to tell you that the Ark of the Covenant existed as a power source before the Jews had it, okay? And I'm going to tell you how I know. If you look at the Great Pyramid of Giza, and you go into the King's Chamber, the beautiful red granite box that has the chip on the corner, okay, in the King's Chamber, in the Great Pyramid, the beautiful sarcophagus, they call it, that has the chip on it that's made out of beautiful solid red granite. Do you know that the Ark of the Covenant fits within perfectly? If you draw the dimensions of the Ark of the Covenant without the poles on the end, the box of the Ark of the Covenant fits neatly inside of the sarcophagus in the Great Pyramid. It's the same size. It fits right in.
Seems like it would be pretty hard for them to move it around without protection.
No, because the Ark of the Covenant was a power source. And the Ark of the Covenant was at the heart of the Great Pyramid for many thousands of years. It was closed. It was enclosed. They had to break into the pyramid to get into it. Right. So they enclosed the Ark of the Covenant inside the resonator of the chamber, of the King's Chamber, because Chris Dunn talked about the tuning of it. And Chris Dunn talked about the being a huge resonance machine.
How do you spell his name again? His last name?
D-U-N-N, Christopher Dunn.
Okay.
Yep, Christopher Dunn has his theory on it's called the pyramid machine.
I have that on, link to that on my blog.
Early on, the pyramid was designed to help relieve the stress upon a fault line. Remember, we talked about that.
Let me just give the link to it real quick on Peace, Wellness.
I forgot, Bill.
Okay, go ahead.
What it is that if you look at the geographic location of the Great Pyramid, when the Great Pyramid was completely functional, the Nile River was a lot closer. And so the tidal forces of the Nile River flowing underneath the Great Pyramid would cause a beautiful resonance to set up inside of the chambers. And basically, the pyramid resonated at extremely low frequencies when it was operating properly. It resonated at different frequencies across the spectrum, but one of the frequencies that it did was a very low, deep. Because of the weight and the size of it, it could develop these very, 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 very long, deep waves, like a 1 hertz wave, a 0.08 hertz, these huge, long, deep waves because of the weight of the pyramid. Being at this pressure point, when it would resonate and it would start to vibrate, it would allow the flip point of the plate to beautifully, continually be nudged to slip against each other so that there wouldn't be a great earthquake.
All right. Yeah.
So the pyramid originally was an earthquake prevention device. One of its original functions was to perform this deep resonance of these very long, deep waves in order to keep the fault line from flipping too much at one time. So it was always on it going, whoa, 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 right? It kept it just vibrating. So so the plates would just kind of slip against each other, and there would never be this big, huge snap.
Do we need that now in California? Would that be helpful?
We need it everywhere.
Yeah.
The part of the pyramid system in Egypt was to help keep that region free from earthquakes. Okay?
Okay.
That you could not have a magnitude 1 above with the earthquake machine working. You could never have a higher magnitude earthquake than below a 1. That's how it worked.
Well, that's helpful information.
It would resonate to a frequency that it would keep the plates, but you'd never have an earthquake above a 3 or a 6 like we'd ever see. You'd never have above a 1.
Wow.
So you'd never have a major earthquake, Linda, and you'd never have a tsunami. Huh? So you wouldn't have any earthquakes and tsunamis. What a useful machine.
Yeah. And thanks for revealing it.
Okay, I got chills over my shoulder on that. Yeah. Okay, who designed that?
God?
No, I don't know. I'm just trying to say, come on, kids, wake up. Okay, the Great Pyramid is thousands and thousands of years old. The alignment of the Great Pyramid is stuck to the point in time 18,000 or 22,000 years ago. Pick a point. Okay, they already did it. The alignment of the pyramids actually points to a time 22,000 years ago. It's either 11,000 years or 22,000 years. You get to pick one because we haven't come across the cycle again. It's coming up again in another 1,000 years. But it's 11,000 year cycle. So when they did the math and they put the numbers back, guess what? The alignment of the pyramids goes to 11,000 years ago or it goes to 22,000 years ago. So someone built an earthquake preventative resonator 11,000 to 22,000 years ago plus. And it had at the heart of it the energy device that we call the Ark of the Covenant. And inside of the granite box, at the heart of it also resonated frequencies that helped to keep peaceful feelings among the people.
Right.
That was the second function of the pyramid. Okay, it had other functions, but the pyramid was tuned to resonate at a particular frequency that is compatible with peaceful feelings. It was the same brain waves as our brain has. It would resonate within the alpha wave, and it would resonate at a certain alpha wave frequency that was near the tuning of the Earth, 7.68, whatever it is. Right. And at this 7.68 hertz, is a frequency that if you listen to, it's a placator. It was a peace generator.
Yes, we need that now. It wouldn't hurt in the United States.
Okay, so listen. So who made a machine that had the Ark of the Covenant type of power source at its heart? It resonated frequencies to keep us free from earthquakes and tsunamis, and then it also resonated a frequency of peaceful, good feeling. Okay, and then guess what the third function of the pyramid is?
Energy? Free energy?
That's correct. The wave guide. This is correct. Because they found that the at a particular wavelength, and they've made the measurement for the wavelength of microwave that it would generate. It's close to the spectrum frequency of hydrogen. So they were resonating microwave energy at the resonance frequency of hydrogen, pointing out into space, which means that these were fueling points. If you were able to receive this signal being broadcast up into space, you would, if you had a receiver, or if you had a microwave receiver tuned to the same frequency as this emission coming out of the pyramid, you would receive energy. I'm not talking about any kind of astronaut theory. I'm just trying to say, why did the pyramid have these microwave waveguides pointing up into space? Just saying. And if you had the right receiver, you could receive energy from these waveguides. Just saying. So, I don't know.
Huh. Well, we've taped 22 minutes.
The chambers, the resonant chambers that I'm talking about with the microwave waveguide, they actually point to specific stars.
Huh. What would that...
The stars that they pointed to aligned at 11,000 and 22,000 years ago. Okay, so there's something that happened. But anyway, so
they're receiving continual light energy from those stars. Right?
You know, isn't it interesting right now? Remember that video that I sent you on calling the energy of the Earth, putting up a copper wire, and then grounding the other end, and you've got all the energy you need.
Right.
If you fly a copper wire on a balloon, and then you take the other end and you hook it to something, you'll get electrocuted. Okay?
Let's not try
I'm just saying. And that's not even in a lightning storm. Okay. So, Linda, if you need to charge your battery, just fly a balloon.
Oh, I see. Yeah, because it's hard to have the piece of wire stay in the air.
They don't tell you it's that easy. They don't tell you can just get electricity by flying a copper wire, Linda, but you can. They lied to us.
Well, Tesla was figuring this kind of stuff out, I think, wasn't he? Tesla.
You think?
Yeah.
Come on. You know what? I'll tell you how cool it is. I didn't even realize. I have one of my dear friends, and I've got to go into. One of my dear friends is actually, his family owns the Delta Primate Center in Louisiana. The Delta Primate Center is the premier primate research center in the world. Mm-hmm. Okay? It's not nice.
Yeah.
But anyway, but for research purposes, they're doing research laboratories across the world. And they need power. Okay? And I'm not talking about evil, okay, because this is my friend, and I know him very well. And the work that they do is involved in cancer research and brain cell research. It's extremely necessary. We have to know. It's part of the sacrifice of the animal in order for the human to be okay. It's the same thing as eating chicken. Okay? It's the sacrifice of the animal in the name of science. It's so that they can stop a baby from having Alzheimer's disease. It's so that they can stop a person from having dementia. It's to stop a person from having terminal cancer. So that's the things that they're working with right now. It is viable research. It's not pleasant research, but it is necessary research in order to save lives. And this is what I feel that I'm feeling from God. God is not happy with the merciless killing of animals, and he's not happy with the torture of animals. But in the name of science, to enable humans to have a better quality of life, there
Yeah, I think it was important to say for all listeners wondering.
Right. Because it's hard for people to understand that God doesn't condone the killing of animals. But in the name of science to save humanity, there might be a higher purpose.
Right.
And I support the hard work of the people that are dedicated to saving the lives of people that have a good heart, that understand the gravity of what they're doing, and they approach their work with that mindset.
Right. So God knows and is telling you, like the heart knows the hearts of the people involved with that research.
It's difficult. Absolutely.
Then you are going to tell me that they need electricity from around the world.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, so the electricity all around the world, okay? How do you get power to power? Everybody needs power. So, anyway, my recommendation, because I do a lot of ministry across the world, and I support a lot of people that are in impoverished countries. And so, one of the things that I love to do is to find alternate energy sources and easy ways to get the internet, easy ways to get wireless, easy ways to have electricity. So what I see is that the easiest way for people to get electricity in their own hands is actually to build a wind generator. It's very easy to build a wind generator. It's also easy to build a water generator that's powered by water. Okay, so if you build a water generator, wind generator, solar, okay, so what I suggest to them is they do it all. I say, build your solar generator, build your water generator, I have them do multiple power sources. I don't tell them to rely on one. So we'll make a battery bank out of 12-volt batteries, okay? So all they have to do is go to the salvage yard and find old 12-volt batteries. Test the 12-volt batteries to see if they can hold a charge. You might even work with them and replenish the electrolytes in them, whatever you can do to refurbish it, because they're all still, they can usually work. The best batteries to find are 6-volt. The 6-volt golf cart batteries are very good deep cycle batteries. 6 volts, and you run them together to equal 12 volts. You can do that, and then you make a bank of those 6-volt batteries. Another really good battery that I recommend to people to look for if you're looking for a long-term storage in lead acid is what it's called, lead battery. The cellular telephone towers use a specific lead battery sometimes. It's called a 96 amp hour battery. It's one battery that can hold 96 hours worth of electricity. One battery. So what I recommend is that people look for these cell phone tower batteries that hold 96 amp hours. And the 96 amp hour cell phone batteries, if you get 3 of those, that's 300 amp hours. That's a lot. So 3 96 amp hour cell phone batteries would be my recommendation for a system to start with. Then you use your solar, you use your wind, you use your water, and then you combine all your sources, and you'll be able to have enough electricity to do what you need. And it won't cost you anything. It only costs time and the materials to build it. A lot of times you can recycle things. So what I recommend to my third world country people is that they take existing motors that are already in trash, washing machine, okay? A broken washing machine has a motor in it that can be used as a generator, okay? So if you take apart a washing machine, it actually has the parts inside of a washing machine, usually has enough parts for you to build your own wind generator. Oh. Because it has a clutch mechanism in it, and it has a huge drive mechanism. It has everything in it that you need. A washing machine, a broken washing machine has everything in it that you need to make either a water or a wind generator. Yep.
That's very helpful information.
Absolutely.
Even in this country.
And the other thing on the internet, if you look on the internet, you need to have a DC motor in order to generate electricity. Okay, a DC motor. If the motor inside the washing machine or whatever you're trying to use is not a DC motor, there's actually tutorials on YouTube how to rewire an AC motor to be a DC motor. So you can take an AC motor that's wired for alternating current, you unwrap the wire, and you wrap the wire differently, so you actually conserve the wire. You just rewrap the wire. Even sometimes it just means disconnecting a couple of parts and soldering a couple pieces. It actually sometimes just involves a very simple soldering to change the motor from AC to DC. But once you have a DC motor, you want something that has a fairly large diameter, and then your rotation speed is important too. So the faster that you spin the motor, the more electricity you create. So if you use the clutch mechanism and the parts from inside of the washing machine, it actually helps to kind of like a bicycle, where you are using a small gear to turn a big gear, and you get an increase in speed, rotation. It works like that. So let's say you have your big wheel driving your windmill, or your big wheel is being pushed by your whatever water is being just spun around, right? And then the other end, as long as you got it hooked to the little tiny gear thing at your motor, it's going, so it's spinning. So that's how it works. The big wheel spins the little wheel faster.
Well, before I end this, I wanted to mention that, if we're going to build pyramids for the stabilization thing.
This is not how I would say it. Okay, so let's. That's not what I'm talking about, because the amount of effort and the amount of energy that would be needed in order to replicate the pyramid, it would not be efficient. Okay, it was only because you had enough labor to move 10-ton and 100-ton stones and stack them on each other for 20 years. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. If you want to get teams of 20,000 men to lift stones for 30 years or 20 years, then I think
Ron Wyatt came up with that archaeologist, scientists came up with how they would have been moved, like a wooden structure kind of thing. But yeah, so do you have other suggestions?
It's not practical.
Okay.
The problem with the Great Pyramid, and there's suggestive video evidence, I guess, because it's no archaeology. These are all theories. It's conjecture and theory. Okay, that's all. That's all we can ever have. That's all it can ever be is a theory. That's all we can ever have is speculation and conjecture. But, we can look at the pieces and try to fit the puzzle together. And so that's what I like to do. I like to look at the pieces out there and try to fit the puzzle together and see if we can come up with some kind of interesting, either way that it goes, it's just intriguing to me to say that the ancient people knew a lot more than we give them credit for. And they knew a lot more technology, and they knew a lot more about energy, and they knew a lot more about resonance, and they knew a lot more about crystalline structure like granite and the different properties of these different things like andesite and granite and all of these different quartzites is what they're called, I guess. They have crystals in them, and they all have electrical properties. Our science is finding this out today. Do you know, Linda, that just the Great Pyramid, do you know that, let's look at the King's Chamber, just the weight, just because the big huge plates that are sitting on top of the King's Chamber are made out of a specific type of a granite, And just because they have pressure on them, the weight of the pressure of everything pushing down on the beautiful red granite causes electricity.
Wow.
When you put pressure on a granite crystal, it makes electricity. So the pressure of the physicality of the push of it just sitting there is actually continually generating electricity. People don't even know that. But if they weren't made out of the right materials, it wouldn't. It only works because it's made out of a certain material. Who knew that?
I was thinking, what if a mountain could be sculpted in such a way, but...
But I'm just saying, but who figured out that all these different granites had all these different properties of electricity? Who figured out that if you squeeze it, you get electricity out of it? How would you know that? Who taught you that? I'm just saying, there's a lot of knowledge that the ancients had that was lost. We can see the design of the materials that they've used to build things. Another thing that people don't even talk about is the osarium. Okay? I'm talking about ancient Egypt history now. It's called the osarium. Well, the osarium, they call the osarium, but guess what? The osarium is under the ground.
Does that start with an A? A-U?
Osiris. Osiris is the god.
Okay.
I'm not trying to talk about any gods.
Right.
Don't think that I follow any gods. I'm just talking about what it is. Osarium. Osiris.
Okay.
Osarium. Osiris is the god of the underworld and the god of the dead. And so the Osarium is subterranean. A lot of it. But that's not true. Okay? If you look at the Osarium, it had been buried. And so what you notice is that there's like 4 foot and 6 foot worth of dirt on top of the Osarium, and that's actually, you look up, like 12 foot higher, and all of a sudden, that's the level that they built the pyramid on. That's weird. How come there's like 6 to 10 feet worth of dirt burying? Oh wait, look, the ground of the Osarium used to be where the ground was. So wait, if the Osarium wasn't underground, but the Osarium was actually equal to the ground, then where did all this other sand and dirt come? Oh my goodness, how long has the Osarium been there? Oh wait, so the ground is where the Osarium, the bottom of the Osarium is actually where the ground was. And so everything that's gone on top of the Osarium, all the dirt, has built up over the centuries and thousands of years to be 25 and 30 foot and 40 foot worth of compact dirt on top of the Osarium, and then they built the pyramid on top of this compact dirt that's on top of the Osarium.
Is there space? Like, is there dirt separating them?
But the ground was level to the Osarium is what I'm saying. That's how long ago that was built. It was built so long ago that the ground was equal to the level of the bottom of the Osarium.
How tall is it?
It's thousands. They tried to say that the Osarium was built by the Egyptian culture, but it couldn't have been because it's buried under so much mud that they didn't even know it was there.
Right. Well,
so how could the Osarium have been built by the Egyptians to worship Osiris if it was buried under 25 foot of dirt with the pyramid on top of it? Can't be. And guess what? The Osarium has a special type of construction to it. The Osarium is made of the huge megalithic things that we see. So guess what? When we look at the structures in Cusco, and we look at the structures in Russia, and I look at in the Caucasus and the Balkans mountains, guess what? It looks exactly like the structure of the Osarium. When we look at the stones that are all carved together in the beautiful the highlands of South America, Andes, help me, Machu Picchu.
Yeah.
Not Machu Picchu, because that means old man that that they built on top of that were existing from the culture that was there before they built it. Anyway, so the Osirium is very, 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 very old.
I wonder what happened to these advanced older cultures. Was this the flood?
The Osirium is buried under 25 foot of flood material, and
so the flood was back that far. Well, it was around that right out after all these, but some of these are up really high in the mountains in the Andes.
I had my I don't know. I went off on a lot of we can stop. It's okay. We went off on a lot of different subjects. So.
But yeah, kind of the original point was that culture of Akhenaten. It was a way that God was communicating to people an early concept of God. That
I believe this is true. You know, an early concept of monotheism. I think it's the only thing that we can find documented in history of someone thinking of only one God. Okay. Because I don't think the Hindus believe in one God only. We haven't found any other documentation in history of monotheism other than the Dead Sea Scrolls.
Other than the Dead Sea Scrolls?
Yeah, other than the Dead Sea Scrolls.
Documentation. Huh.
The Dead Sea Scrolls are really important for monotheism, of course, because it's 2,000 years ago that we have documented.
Well, they corroborated the writings so that we could feel comfortable they were still accurate, right. 2,700 years later or more. Yeah. So.
Right.
Okay. Well,
validate everything.
Well, let's call that one show. Let me stop it then, and I don't know if we want to say anything else at the very end of this.
No, that's fine. I mean,
yeah.
Just put a disclaimer that this is just open discussion and just fun food for thought, and that I'm not trying to. I love God, and I believe in Jesus Christ, and I believe in the power of the Holy Spirit, and I follow my Bible, and I read my scripture all the time, and I play praise and worship music, and I serve God, and I'm a disciple of Jesus. So I would like to.
This is helpful insights, really.
Well, it's true. I mean, I'm not into any kind of alternate religions at all. I just love history and archaeology.
But like when we were talking about the pyramids and how they stabilized and emitted the low frequency wavelengths for peace, well, right. We do have a HAARP project, HAARP.
Well,
that
no, because I think that what gets put in what you were talking about is it gets put into my mind as being called the placator.
Okay.
Okay, that's what the pyramid was. It was a placator. I don't know what that means.
Could that keep people they can be happy slaves and not really question things?
No, because it wasn't about slavery, because people were free. It had to do with peace and well-being.
Okay.
It wasn't. I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm just trying to talk about
some kind of frequency, but we could use the.
It's not. It had to do with keeping people from murdering each other.
Okay. So early type of.
It's basically a machine. It was basically broadcasting a peaceful, well-being, feeling good frequency. It was like, I don't know how to explain
it. It was an alternative to following a moral law, and that there could be a God, and you're going to be held accountable for your actions.
Listen. It was part of what we were supposed to have. We aren't supposed to be exposed to the world in our raw state.
I'm not understanding what you mean.
Okay. Okay. The frequency that we're in tune with the earth. We look at the frequencies of our brain.
Yeah.
And our frequencies that give feelings of peace and well-being are very specifically tied into the resonant frequency of the earth.
Right, like if you go outside, you more at peace, and that frequency is
so
the light coming in and bouncing off our atmosphere. That's
the resonance
7.89 or something.
If the resonance of the earth changes, then we feel the physicality of it. Okay, we know when the earth gets under stress because we feel it in our brain. And so when I was talking about the placator, it basically would broadcast a frequency of peace and well-being that would keep everyone at peace and well-being. And there wouldn't be fighting, there wouldn't be the strife, there wouldn't be the murder, there wouldn't be the deceit. It kept most of that at bay.
And,
okay,
that's another way to say that could be these bad spirits when it couldn't deal with it.
Right, most of the animalistic nature of humans, it helped to suppress that. It was good.
Yeah.
It wasn't bad. It's like listening to good music, soothing music. Right? If you listen to something that's going to go, right, that might make you feel different than, I love to feel a bird in the springtime, and I see the sunlight shining. There's a difference, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just saying. Okay, so the placator was basically playing beautiful, peaceful music, I guess if you think of it like that, and not heavy satanic rock and roll. Okay, it was the opposite of that.
Well, if it's a very low wavelength, you wouldn't even hear it. Actually,
that's exactly what I'm saying. It was subconscious.
But back to helping a structure that could help not have earthquakes and tsunamis.
Well,
is there a way?
I'm saying that we could there should be something that people could have that we could play like that. Some type of a peaceful, good sounding frequency that might relieve our stress and our.
Oh, like our radio stations. Like what about one station could just play that?
Right.
People don't even hear it.
So our choice of music that we listen to, right? Like if you're having a struggle in your life and you're not very godly and you're struggling with sin and anger and rage, maybe try listening to K-Love radio for a little while. Can't hurt.
Yeah, right.
Positive Christian radio, a lot of times, is good programming for our mind.
Yeah, it's helpful.
And it helps us to get reprogrammed from what society wants us to think. Society wants us to worry. Society wants us to work hard for everything and carry our load of stone. Well, okay, yeah. But, there's creation and there's art and there's inspiration and there's all these other things that are out there besides carrying your stone every day. And I think that's what God wants us to know. God says there's a beautiful world out there, guys and girls. Create, enjoy, be at peace, be at harmony with each other, love one another. Turn on your own placator machine. Don't kill each other. Don't murder each other. Don't lie to each other. We need a placator machine today. We need to have a machine that plays this stuff for us.
And it's part of that sounds like it's our intention for us to turn our intentions on our thoughts and get healthy vibrations in our life to help everything be. If we're turning towards peace, it sounds like God's giving us guidance on here's how to do it. That's one way. But I still am wondering about the prevention of the earthquakes or lessening the tsunami. We're not ready for that yet. Maybe.
Well, no, that was a time for then. Okay, I don't know where the technology. I don't know how we couldn't replicate the pyramid today, Linda. They can't do it, and so no. They couldn't make it exactly the same. I don't know what it all means. I think that we just have to be aware of things and not be so judgmental of each other, the judgment of each other. That's another big problem in our world. We all judge each other. Jesus never showed any judgment. Jesus practiced unconditional love. It's very hard for us to practice unconditional love. But I tell you this, if you're a pastor or if you're a minister of a church, you have to practice unconditional love. You have to. You cannot be a minister and you cannot be a pastor and serve God and teach Jesus' message if you do not have unconditional love and non-judgment for your people.
Yeah.
Because if you're sitting back and you judge your congregation, or if you're sitting back and you don't have unconditional love, Jesus selected every apostle. Every apostle was a sinner. Every apostle cursed. Every apostle had a life of sin. Everyone did.
Well, he must have, though, been able to see their heart and to think they have an open mind to what I'm going to say.
But
and
I don't know.
Capacity to.
I don't know of any pastor,
Wow.
and I don't know of any minister that would sit down next to a sinner and a criminal and love him as an equal.
Yeah.
Sit at my table and let's share a meal together and talk. I know you're a sinner. I know that you. That's what Peter told him. When Jesus saw Peter, Simon, he said, Simon, Peter, he says, leave your nets and come with me. And what did he tell him? He said, I know you're the Messiah. He goes, you don't want me. I'm a sinner. I'm a fisherman. I'm dirty. Look, I take off my clothes and I go swim naked in the water every day. The fishermen in those days fished with no clothes on. It was well known. It's true.
Huh.
They would have very little clothing on, especially when they were in the water and fishing. They would probably have something tied around their waist, but that's it, because they were wet.
Huh.
Okay? And so they were sinners. They were drinkers. They were womanizers. I don't know. It doesn't say that, but I mean, we can think that they were very sinful. They weren't godly men. Jesus didn't go and say, hi, Mr. Smith. I see that you're the successful owner of a great business. Awesome. Look, you got a very beautiful home. You follow God every day. You go to church every Sunday. You got $1,000 a week. You got $1 million in the bank. Come sit with me. Hey, look at you. I see you have a beautiful yacht. And you have 5 homes. I want you to be my disciple. Did Jesus select his 12 disciples like that? Jesus didn't have anybody that was wealthy on his 12. They were all workers. But they were all normal people. They were all sinners. Jesus even kept Judas. Jesus knew Judas was going to betray him. But Jesus gave Judas the money bag. And Jesus knew Judas was stealing from it. But he gave it to him anyway. Why would Jesus give Judas the money bag that he knew he was stealing from? Because why? Money is corruptible. And Judas was already corrupted by Satan. And so it was okay for Judas to handle the money because it kept the other 11 safe. If Judas had his hands in the money, that's fine. The other 11 didn't have anything to do with it. Let Satan have Satan's purse. But he was a part of the 12, just as equal to the others. Jesus sat and ministered to Judas equally. He didn't say, Judas, you go to the other room while I talk to Matthew. He didn't ever say that. He didn't say, Judas, don't listen right now because I'm getting ready to give the Sermon on the Mount. He didn't say that. We're all equal in the eyes of Jesus. At the foot of the cross, every sin is equal. No sin is equal or higher or less than another. None. Only blasphemy of the Holy Spirit is the only unforgivable sin. But every other sin is equal at the foot of the cross because Jesus died for everyone. And so we are not to judge another. We are to love one another. We are to serve God with our whole heart, mind, body, and soul. heaven? Are you going to go to heaven and God's going to say, I noticed that you followed this tradition. Okay, get in. No. God doesn't care. Oh, I went to Sabbath every Sunday. Okay. Oh, I read the Torah every other week. Okay. So, how did you treat your brother? When you saw the homeless person, did you give them something to eat? I don't care if you followed every letter of the Torah, because obviously you didn't. Because if you didn't feed your brother, and if you didn't give your brother clothing, or shelter, or love, then you haven't followed the Torah. I have a lot to say, because the world has been going crazy. Nobody knows who to believe. Nobody knows where the truth is anymore. Everybody's being deceived by liars. Teachers that say they know what they're talking about, and then when the true Spirit of God is in action, they say it's not of God. How can you say it's not of God? How do you know what God is? How do you know what is of God? If someone's being delivered from their possession, this is of God. If someone is being healed from their sickness, it is of God. If somebody's telling you straighten up your life and make your way straight, phone bonotos ente ehomo. Okay? I am the voice crying in the wilderness to make your way straight. Ethenute kai. Yes, make your way straight. I'm not a prophet. I'm not Elijah. I am a voice crying in the wilderness to straighten up your life. Get more God. Amen.
All right. Thank you. Amen. Let me break for now on that note.